What is good, y'all? My name is Ronald, also known as Youcapper from Sportsmemo.com. Welcome to Let's Cap. Today, as you can see, it's me, just me, but I got someone hiding behind the screen here, a new face to the show. We first worked together once on Jay's show during the NBA season. I've been a big fan of his ever since. He is a sports betting analyst with NBC Sports. You can see him on Bet the Edge. He actually just did a show a couple days ago with Drew Dinsick. I think you guys know him more as well, Capper. This is just the beginning for me for me. This is just the beginning for Von Dalzell. I think that this is him. This is his coming out party. Not this show, but this year in general. I think we're going to see a lot of this man's face, Von Dalzell. He has a really bright future ahead of him. Let's just bring him in real quick. Von, man, thank you so much for hopping on the show with me today. I know we want to talk about college football week 0, and possibly maybe if we have time week 1. But obviously we got 3 games on the slate today, or that we want to talk about today. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions so we can kind of get to know you a little bit better. I hope you don't mind we do that. But definitely excited to have you on, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing real well, man. I appreciate the intro and all the kind words. I feel similar to that. I feel like this is the breakout year for me. NBC, moving in the right direction with Matthew Berry and everybody. So I'm super excited to be a part of that. And being on his show, having Bet the Edge, like you said, and we'll have a college football show starting next week. So I appreciate you having me here. You'll definitely be on my show in the future too. And I can't
Love
wait
it.
to have a profitable season, man. It's going to be a long season, but a good one.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you just said it yourself. You like this future is bright, especially for NBC Edge. I feel like everyone's so focused on like companies like VSiN and ESPN and all that stuff. And like speaking of ESPN, we all grew up watching ESPN.
Yeah.
This is that generation where we all dreamed about talking sports for a living. And you do this, and this, like I said, this is the beginning for you. And I feel like we're going to see you so much more in the future. And this is you're in the shoes of where people want to be. And what I want to ask you really is, when and how did you start working with a company like NBC Sports? And do you have any advice for those who eventually want to get into this space and be in the position that you are in?
Man, I could go on and on about that question. It's a great question for sure. And I think, my story really started. I'm a person, I grew up with a single mom. So, I had it a lot tougher where I didn't get all the things I wanted when I was growing up. So I had to work a little harder for everything. If I wanted a cell phone, I had to go out and get a job at 13, 14 years old, whether it was cutting grass or, shoveling snow out in Pennsylvania. But I think moments like that really shape who you are. And when you're, going into college or not going to college looking for a work profession, it's really about making those relationships and focusing on what you want and doing the extra work. If you have a job already, go get a second job, go get an internship, try and learn. Those type things I think really makes a difference. But for me, I was one of the youngest at 23 years old. I was a sports formation director for the Metro Athletic Atlantic Conference, the MAC, the Riders, the Manhattans. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on TV talking sports or be an athletic director. So I was working towards being an AD. And after 3 months, I quit because I wasn't happy. And I
Yeah.
think what you can get from me is being happy with what you do. And I saw fantasy and betting as a way to do that. So I really just took a shot at it. I quit my job. I sold golf clubs, worked at a YMCA while I wrote for Number Fire, Fan Sided. I could bet the prop, go on and on. And, by making a Twitter, putting my face out there, putting my information out there, and continue not to care what people think about me was
Yeah.
the way that NBC found me. So, a lot of information there to digest, but that's kind of, part of my story, and I can go a lot further. But my DMs are always open for people who, want to be in similar shoes as me or just want to have any questions in general.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, that's just dope to hear in general. I retweeted something yesterday about what Draymond Green said to these cats at the Heinz the Heinz runs, where a lot of the players go, both NBA players and some those who want to get onto the squads. He was talking about how he's a veteran. He's someone that's already made it, and the guys that haven't made it, they're like running lines and they're last. I mean, if you want to make it to the league, you got to put in
Yeah.
the effort. You got to work hard and get there. And I also talked about this on my show, or I mean, I tweeted this out a while ago as well. It's just like you really need to focus on yourself and work on what you need to do to get to where you got to go, and not focus on other people and what they're doing, because that really kind of just derails
Yeah.
you, right? It derails your
Yes.
vision. And another thing too, just kind of going off of what you were saying is like when you have a goal or a mission, or if you're working harder for something else than just money, that's where that kind of hard work and effort come into play, right? You just like you, I didn't grow up with a lot of stuff. I didn't grow up into a situation where I was able to get the things that I wanted to do. So we had to work and get that stuff on our own. And following in your footsteps as well, just quitting my job. I made a decent amount of money as a business analyst for a healthcare company, working with data and things like that. But like you, it didn't make me happy. And sports betting, talking about sports is what it was, and that's what made me happy. And I was able to quit my job and do this. So that is really dope to hear.
Yeah, and I was to say, like, to reiterate, dude, no matter what you do, like, you should be focused on being happy because, money will make you happy in the long run at some points in your life. But without, there's other times in my life where I think about where I didn't have money, where I was happier at times than when I was with NBC. And another thing I'll say, what you said, don't worry about other people. If you're having a bad time betting, don't worry about someone else that is winning. All right.
Yeah.
It's how you continue to lose. All right. So,
yeah,
being 2 years with this and 4 years betting myself, I think I've learned a lot. And that's one thing I take away a lot. Do not worry about someone else.
Exactly. That's some dope stuff. And that comes to my next question as well. I mean, like we talk about what other people do and how they how they bet is something that I talk about actually a lot. I preach that there's a lot of different ways to win, right? Everyone bets different in different ways. They have different styles. But I won't knock someone just because they're doing it differently, because like I said, they can win their style in their way and I can win in my way, and there's no issue because we're all on the same side, right? Like Jay says,
Yeah.
it's us against the bookies. So speaking of different styles of betting that can be profitable, what would you say is your style of handicapping? Are you more like stats and analytics, trends, or situational? Kind of go through that with you, with us, and is it different for every sport too? Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, my outlook definitely is a lot of data based. I mean, when I do player props, I'm always looking to see how many minutes or snaps those guys are getting on a natural basis compared to the matchup they have, whether it's college football, NFL, or NBA. I mean, as you know, we've done shows with Jay and NBA, and we always look for the minutes and whether the rotations with these guys. But for college football in particular, I think it's really been my most successful sport over the past 3 years. I mean, I haven't had a losing season in it yet. The only sport I haven't had a losing season in. And I think it's mainly because the data is so strong when it comes to college football. For an example, a team like Penn State who plays week 1 against Purdue, Penn State has beat Purdue 9 straight times. A lot of times I'm backing teams like that in those spots if I can get a nice price on their lines. And then also in that same game, the under is 9-2-1 in the last 12 meetings. The 2 games Penn State scored, it was 45 and 62 they scored themselves. So I look at trends like that, and I'm trying to find a good bet. And I'll talk about in a little bit of Illinois game with Wyoming, how they struggle against Big Ten teams and on the road against Power 5 teams. But you should be looking for stats like that, whether you're a parlaying person or a straight bet person.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm more of really it's like a balance, right? Because you want that trend side, and you want the analytics side, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, well, we look at situational as well, like coming off of a emotional loss. So it's really a balance that I see that you mentioned while you're talking about your capping style. So I love that aspect of it, just being able to be a balance better, not just one, not just one way to do it. So I love what you said there. With that said, dude, let's go into college football week 0. First, we got the Cowboys and the Fighting Illini here. We talked briefly, really quick, right before the show about this game, and I like where you're going with it. Go ahead and start your breakdown, and then I'll add a little bit to the end there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Illinois this year, which is odd for me. Of course, NBC got the Big Ten deal, so I'll be betting a lot of Big Ten football this year in preparation for next year. But Illinois is a team I'm going to be watching pretty closely because next year they're going to be even better. They got Tommy DeVito in at quarterback. He's a Syracuse transfer. That's a big upgrade over Artur Satowski. But the real moves are Chase Brown, Josh McCray, the running backs, with Isaiah Williams, the receiver. Their offense is going to look a lot better, and their defense is one of the best it's been in a while. Brett Bielema is the coach. Second year with the team. He was a former Wisconsin coach, so he likes defense. In the Big Ten specifically, Illinois only let up 18.8 points per game last year. They get a lot of guys back that are going to be able to start and make a difference. For Wyoming, it's the complete opposite. 34% of their production back is the third fewest in the NCAA. I talked about that Power 5 and Big Ten record.
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming has not won a road game against a Power 5 school since 2005, and they're 1-19 on the money line all time against Big Ten opponents. Lost the last 4 by 25 points per game. So you look at Wyoming with the new coaching staff. You look at Illinois returning the second year into Bilma with all this. The Cowboys don't have a quarterback right now. They lost both their workhorses at running back and the receivers to the transfer portal, and they're replacing their entire secondary. So, I like Illinois a lot in the spot. I took the -10. It's out to 11 now. I still think the 11 is playable because this line should be about 12.5 in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I also threw them in the money line parlay with Vandy that we'll get to a little later too.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up the final line on defense, because I think that's what's the main factor in why I
Yeah,
also like this play a lot. One thing that I was worried about is Illinois' offense going to be ready to put up points, but they don't
way
really
better.
need to. They don't really need to, because they're going to have a short field for the most part, in my opinion, right? The defense is going to
Yeah.
stop them. They're Wyoming. They're going to be able to hopefully create turnovers and create a short field where they won't need to have these long drives to put up points, in my opinion. So I love this play a lot, and you can kind of see that the total also went down. So the defensive side of the ball is going to be the key here, and with the line going up, you can kind of see that storyline unfolding there. So I like that play a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I do see some 11 and a halves showing up.
Ooh.
So if you guys are watching this now, I say take the 11 as soon as you can, because it's definitely a solid play. I'm on it as well. I didn't get the 10 like you did, but I did get the 11. So hopefully we cash on that one. With that said, our second game here, we got the North Texas Mean Green against the UTEP Miners. I think it's at Pick'em at some books, but North Texas opened at -4 a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, and a lot of these lines open up, back in like April, May, and June on some books. Like the Circus of the world had some different lines than, DraftKings, for example. But I was surprised when I saw +4 for UTEP in this spot. I was a big Mean Green supporter last season. Like I rode them in those 5-game winning streak. I rode them the entire way, and I also rode them against Miami, Ohio when they lost that bowl game. So I know all about
Yeah.
North Texas. And I'm still taking UTEP in this spot +1. I take them in a pick'em spot. Now, everybody's on North Texas for 2 reasons, Ronald. The first one being North Texas has won 5 straight against UTEP. When you look at most of those games, they were very narrow games, including the last one, whenever North Texas threw a 58-yard Hail Mary, set them up for a field goal with 10 seconds left to win the game by 3 points. And another reason why is North Texas finished the season hot, winning 5 out of their last 6. UTEP finished the season cold. They started off 5-1. Lost 5 out of their last 6 games. So you
Mhm.
look at that reverse, and people are going to be like North Texas all the way. But what you really want to look at here is the matchups.
Mhm.
The front seven for UTEP, so much better. They get a lot of guys back. One of their linebackers may not play. He's going to be like a 7th-year senior.
That's
He's
wild.
filling out a waiver right now, but if he plays, he's a big plus. But North Texas doesn't have one guy returning on their defensive line, no experience. UTEP has the best 1 and 2 punch backfield in their conference, and arguably the best quarterback in their conference.
Mhm.
So I look at that with North Texas quarterback. They got a transfer in. He couldn't beat out Austin On. Austin On is 6-10 on the money line when he throws 17 plus passes. Career percentage of 51 for completion percentage. Not much to like from North Texas, to be honest with you. They have a good ground game. They have a decent secondary. Other than that, though, you think UTEP is clearly the better team. It should be a sellout, and it should be a very excited crowd in El
Yeah,
Paso,
I mean,
Texas.
I think what I'm seeing here too is, obviously opening from -4 for North Texas down to PK at some books. Do you think you all right, so these week 0 lines have been out for a while, right?
Yeah.
And you could see a lot of the lines have shifted like 3+ points,
Hmm.
and also even on the total, not just on the side. At this point, we're doing the show a couple of days before the games. At this point, is there still some value to grab them at these numbers, or do you feel like we've kind of lost it at that point?
I mean, I think this line moved like more than a month ago from, it's been +1.5 for almost a month now. So I really
Got
don't
you.
think, I think the line is adjusted to where it should be now. There was a lot of mistake lines out there. You could look at a Penn State Purdue that opened at 57. It's down to 54 now. I was
Yeah.
going to bet New Mexico State and Nevada under 53.5, but it moved down to 50, and that's
Yeah.
unbettable now for me. So, it depends on what your view of these value is. But for me, this line's been here for over a month now. So I think it's set to where it should be.
Awesome. All right, that's good. That's good to hear. And then all right, so we got that next game. So I know you like UTEP on that one, and the next game here we got the Vanderbilt Commodores and the Hawaii Warriors. This is the late game, right? This is
Yeah,
usually
of
Warrior.
course.
This is the chase game. This is the chase game for everybody. How
Yeah.
are you looking at this one?
Yeah, the chase game, a lot of people are going to be in Hawaii for the chase game, or they'll be betting the over because over in Hawaii game sounds like an easy bet more times than not. I
Yeah.
actually think I lean the over for sure. I actually do lean the over, not just because it's a fun bet, because Vanderbilt's offense is going to look a lot better this season in non-conference play. Let's not talk about the SEC play yet, but
Yeah.
they got Mike Wright at quarterback instead of Ken Seals now, and Wright's actually mobile. He looked really good in their spring practices. He looked good in their scrimmages over the past month. And when you look at Hawaii, I mean, you've heard it by now. Only 6 total returning starters. Everybody left after the post Todd Graham era. Timmy Chang's the new coach now, former quarterback for Hawaii Stadium. New stadium at 9,300 fans. That's it.
Mhm.
And Vanderbilt's been out there. They've been out there since Sunday to adjust to that time zone difference. So they're not worried about the time zone in general. They're a team that runs the ball very well. They're going to beat Hawaii at the line of scrimmage. I got them at plus 6.5 when we came out on our show. 2 days later, this line's moved out to 7.5, eights, 8.5. I honestly would not be playing Vandy at that rate. I'd be
Mhm.
okay with putting them in the money line parlay. I got them in Illinois at minus 136. You're looking at like 155, 160 for that now. So a lot
Mhm.
of these bets would be risking a unit now instead of playing to win a unit
Yeah.
based on that line movement. But I do think Vanderbilt can cover this game. I think if Hawaii gets a score early, you should live bet Vanderbilt ASAP. But I wouldn't want to play the 8.5. There's no value there.
Yeah, I like the live look there because that's something that was profitable for me in college football last year was the live betting because there's so many games every Saturday, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you have all these lists of games that you're looking at and you're like, "All right, I like this," but the line has shifted so much because it takes so much time to go through each game in depth, right? By the time you're
Hmm.
you're trying to get one of these games, the line has shifted to a number that we don't really like, just like this one. Now it's past a touchdown, and you don't
Yeah.
want to you don't want to you don't want to lay that. So you wait for a live line here, and you can get something maybe like a minus 6.5. After a touchdown with Hawaii if they get an early score. So I
Yeah.
like that angle a lot as far as playing the live line because yeah, I wouldn't at this rate, at this number at -8, and we're seeing some 8.5s. I wouldn't take Vandy at that number. But I like the fact that you mentioned that they were there since last week because that's something that a lot of people don't really know or even look into, the whole travel factor.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, with college football, college football and NFL obviously is the same sport, but there's some different rules, right? And then also there's a big to me there's a bigger gap between some schools versus the NFL teams, right? Um,
Yeah.
and we see that in the line. We see like a Connecticut Utah State here. It's like -27. When you see these types of lines, these heavy favorite, heavy dogs, do you throw those away just because the number, just the sheer number the line is, or do you kind of still try to look at value at the underdog in that spot?
So it would really depend on the travel situation for these teams, like you said. But I would be look more interested in, are they on a back to back? Are they on a back to back and then playing a neutral site game? These
Mhm.
type of things, who they played out of week zero. All these teams, they don't have an advantage when it comes to the scheduling or the time zone because they all have as much time as they need to plan ahead of that to do that.
Mhm.
But like a team like Arkansas, for example, I'll use a 3 game stretch for them last season. Arkansas played at Georgia, at Ole Miss, then came home versus Auburn. When
Mhm.
you're getting a team in a stretch like that, I'm looking for that team to bet against them. I don't care what the underdog price is. I'm taking them on the spread, and I'm
Yeah.
taking them on the money line. So in the SEC particular, that's when I'm looking at those bigger spreads because when you play the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world, and they're getting these teams on these
Yeah.
back to backs or coming home after 2 road games, it's a smack city spot, as Jay Money would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's really what I'm looking for when it comes to big spreads.
Got you. So you talk about situational spots now, and that I like hearing that because that's something that we look at in the NBA a lot, right? Like sort of those
Yeah.
sandwich spots where you
Yep.
you have a game
Let
where
down.
you're a heavy favorite, and then the next game you got a key team that you're going against that you want to try and win. Um, so to me, it sounds like that's sort of similar through college football as well. you, especially within the higher division, higher conferences like the SEC, like you mentioned, is that something that really just, I want to say, goes through all sports, or I mean, is that just some sports specifically? Like, would you do that in the NFL? Would you do that in baseball? I know you're not touching baseball right now, but
Yeah.
like sandwich
Yeah.
spots. Is that something that you would do for every sport?
Yeah, I mean, huge letdown spots. I mean, you look at North Texas for an example. Last year, they were playing UTSA at the end of the season. UTSA was undefeated, looking for that just undefeated season, still going to make their conference championship. And
Yeah.
North Texas won 5 straight games, so it's like clearly you should be betting North Texas here for a letdown game. We all know Purdue is the giant killers.
Mhm.
So you just look for spots like that where you could back a team and fade another one. Obviously, like in baseball, there's huge just money line discrepancies. Like we see the
Yeah.
Mets today, are
Minus
like what
400.
-1, yeah, like -1,000 essentially, and people are still going to throw them in their money line parlays. Like you should
Yeah,
just
that's
be bet.
wild.
You could blindly bet the Rockies or teams like that more often than not. You'll be okay. Remember when the Pirates swept the Dodgers? Guess who bet the
Yeah.
Dodgers 3 straight nights? All right, you don't do stuff like that. You take the underdogs in this huge situation. So I'll be
I
looking for
got you.
spots like that. I have BYU's one team I'm circling. Of course,
Mhm.
everyone's really high on them, but they open the season out South Florida at home versus Baylor, then at Oregon those 3 weeks. And I think
Yeah,
I'm going to fade BYU all 3 weeks, then probably back them the next 2 weeks after that. So that's like kind of
gotcha.
ways I look at betting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that angle that you're talking about here because it translates through all sports, and I can kind of hear it when you go through your analysis that there's a lot of similarities on how I bet games to how you bet games. So I
That's good.
that makes me feel a lot better.
Good. Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot better that I'm not,
Hopefully, just not in baseball. Hopefully, you got a whole different system in baseball this year because that
I
was not
actually,
good.
with that said, I know we touched on the three games that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Just to recap, I want to recap the college football games that you said. So you took Fighting Illini -10. It's at -11 now. I took it at -11, so I think it's still good, but I'm
Yeah.
starting to see -11 and a half. So if you guys are watching and you guys want to go ahead and follow us, I would say take it now rather than later. The other one was UTEP. I think you got it at +1, right? Or +1.5.
Yeah. +1. I'd still play that or pick 'em. I'd be fine
Yeah,
with that.
it's at Pick'em right now. Some books still has it at +1, but try definitely line shop if you have that option. And then the last game was Vanderbilt, which you got at 6.5. And I think we're not really recommending taking it
N
at the 8 here. But
No,
if
yeah.
yeah, because he goes obviously past a key number. But at 8, maybe it's something that you watch because it's gonna be the late game. You're gonna be watching it regardless, and see if Hawaii gets an early score. Maybe take a live bet on Vandy there. So that's sort of the recap of the college football games, week 0 that we talked about. And with what you just mentioned with the MLB, I do this thing called So I'm looking at the chat here. There you go. Okay. So I do this thing called MLB trends of the day. I don't know, or trends to watch, and this is something that I've been doing for a while now. And it's funny because on July 13th, I went 0-6. It was like a bad reverse sweep. And I posted it on Twitter. And ever since then, I've been doing these MLB trends to watch. And they've gone on a 121, 55, and 10 run. That's
Damn.
69% win percentage. It's been a really good run. And so today, these are the MLB trends to watch. Two of them, I believe, are early, and it's the same game, Cleveland and Seattle. So we got Houston 9-1 on the first 5 over as home favorites when Garcia starts. Cleveland 9-1 on the full game money line as favorites when the opponent is a starting left-handed pitcher, and then Seattle 11 straight full game unders as home dogs versus starting right-handed pitchers. Yesterday the trends went 1-2, but again, like I said, 121, 55, and 10 run on this MLB trends to watch. So funny that you mentioned the MLB because it is a little bit different for me. Some of the things are the same. Um, what these situational spots are the same, but the way that I cap the MLB is more trend wise. So I've been doing a lot
Mhm.
better after the All Star break because we get a lot more data. with NBA because I mean, for me, basketball is my back. I grew up playing basketball. That's all I did growing up, and like being able to have that coaching background and all that stuff too helps. So I understand that game from beginning to end. And without data, just understanding the game, understanding the players and how players play with each other, team chemistry and stuff like that. That to me, that gives me an advantage to start winning right away from the beginning of the season till the end. But games that I don't grow up playing and just learn from a numbers aspect, that's where you kind of take some time and make sure you get the data available to get profitable in those spots. But yeah, what do you feel about that? Like, is there a sport that you feel like, I know you touched on college football being kind of the best sport as far as profitability, right? Is there a sport that you grew up playing that you feel like, you have an advantage because you understand the game a lot more?
Yeah, I'd say it's football. I played at Jeanette, Pennsylvania, where Terrell Pryor played football. That's how everyone knows where Jeanette, Pennsylvania is. That's a Pennsylvania sports fan. But yeah, I always felt like football, I had a niche for that. And I mean, it became a lot easier for me in general because I look at the matchups and I understand, how teams play and everything like that, the playbooks, the schemes, etc. But basketball is another one as well. The player props. I got into fantasy sports a lot when I was in college. And I saw a correlation between fantasy and player props, which has now been figured out by everybody. And so essentially, that was my niche of player props because fantasy came natural to me just because of knowing, every single player under the sun, essentially.
Yeah, that's dope. Because when I was younger, when I was in middle school, I actually started playing fantasy football when I was in middle school. Not a lot of people my age were doing that. So back then, it was a lot different. We didn't have all these websites and things like that to look at all the databases, all the tables. So you really had to just understand the game and be up to date with all the player movements and stuff. And to me, that's how I got the edge because I would play against adults, right? And they would be working while I'm seeing all the transaction go through. And I would catch all the free agents when they were still available. Now you can't do that. But yeah, the fantasy football, fantasy sports in general definitely helped with me as far as player props and things like that. I don't do player props too often, but it correlates to the full game numbers, spreads and total. So I love that. I love that story that you have there, man. Vaughn, I appreciate you coming on here, dude. Like I really like your vibe. Obviously, it's something that I think I told you right before the show. It was something I wanted to have you on for a while, but when Mitch brought up your name, I was like, all right, at least I'm not the only one that wants you on. So definitely appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, this is not the last time. I want to do more sports with you, especially basketball, because I love the breakdown that you had when we were doing that show together. Because some of the things that you brought up from a prop perspective helped me, understand the full game angle as well. So that was super helpful, and being able to cap with other cappers that have different styles has been super profitable for me. Hopefully for you guys as well who's been watching. But yeah, man, anything to promote before we cut out? Anything to share with our viewers here?
Well, I'll be entering the Circa Vegas Millions contest. I know you guys have probably seen a good bit of cappers entering that contest. So yeah, I'll be down there in about 2 weeks over for the deadline to sign up. I got my 5 ATS picks already. I can't say them on air because some might steal them. But tomorrow's episode of Bet the Edge is going to be a good one. We got a couple guys. We got Lawrence Jackson on there who has been working with Matthew Berry a lot, but he's a great fantasy guy. But I'm giving out, Temple versus Duke bet. I'm going to break down App State versus North Carolina and probably BYU and USF. I already gave you guys my USF side, low-key, if you're listening close enough. But, yeah, no, Ronald, I appreciate you being on, man. And I'll have to get you on my show sometime as well. And, yeah, I mean, cheers to a profitable NFL and college football season, man.
Hell yeah. I mean,
we're here.
To be honest, it's like all these major sports come in, college basketball and NBA too. And if you do
get
hockey,
your rest.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm actually, with that said, I'm about to be in Vietnam in 2 weeks. So I'm going to have my rest. Going into week 1, I'll be out of the country in week 1 for the NFL season, but I'll be back to finish it off, and I'll be going against you in the Circle Millions. You see that hat over there.
Go.
So we'll be touching base a little bit, but with that said, guys, this is the end of the show. Thanks to all who tuned in on YouTube and on Twitter. If you are on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button before you bounce. Make sure you check out the links in the description as well. I got Vaughn's Twitter hyperlink in the description. You just click on it, hit follow. And as always, too, man, I have to end with this. Please remember, whether you fade us or follow us, it's on you to make that call. Good luck on all your action. Till next time, peace.